The 20-minute rule. You've probably heard some version of it: work for 20 minutes, take a break. But that's not what this is. The real 20-minute rule is something elite performers guard closely, because it's the difference between a brain that improves every single day and one that quietly plateaus by 30. And almost everything you've been told about it is backwards. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your focus doesn't run out because you're tired. It runs out because your brain is actively choosing to stop paying attention, and it makes that decision at a startlingly predictable moment, roughly 20 minutes in. Neuroscientists call it vigilance decrement, and it was first measured not in students or office workers, but in radar operators during World War II. Men staring at screens, lives depending on their attention, and the data was brutal. After about 20 minutes, their ability to detect a blip on the screen fell off a cliff. They weren't sleepy. They weren't lazy. Their brains had simply decided this task was no longer worth full processing power and started cutting the budget. That same mechanism is running in your head right now, and most people respond to it in exactly the wrong way. They push through. They drink more coffee. They white-knuckle their way to the 40-minute mark, then the 60, wondering why the words stopped going in around minute 25. They're fighting their own neurology with willpower, and willpower always loses that fight eventually. The people who actually perform at the top, the surgeons, the chess grandmasters, the researchers who produce decade-defining work, they don't fight the 20-minute drop. They engineer around it. And the way they do it would look to an outsider like they're being lazy, because the secret isn't longer focus. It's shorter, deliberately interrupted focus. Here's what the research keeps finding, and what almost nobody acts on. A brief diversion from your task, even just looking away, even for a few seconds, doesn't break your concentration. It rescues it. There's a famous study out of the University of Illinois where researchers gave people a long, dull attention task. One group worked straight through. The other group was interrupted twice by a tiny, unrelated task. The straight-through group's performance decayed exactly the way you'd expect, worse and worse as the minutes passed. The interrupted group? Their performance stayed flat. They didn't decline at all. The interruptions didn't cost them. They protected them. The reason is something called goal habituation. Your brain treats a constant, unchanging stimulus the way it treats the feeling of the shirt on your back. It stops registering it. You're still technically looking at the page, but your brain has filed it under background noise and moved processing power elsewhere. A short break, a deliberate shift, makes the goal feel new again. It re-recruits attention from scratch. This is why a problem you couldn't crack for an hour suddenly solves itself the moment you walk to the kitchen. You didn't get smarter on the walk. You let your brain rediscover the goal. So the real 20-minute rule, the one high performers actually run, looks like this. You work in a focused block of around 20 to 25 minutes, right up to the edge of where vigilance falls off, but not past it. Then you stop. Not when you're exhausted, not when you hit a wall. You stop while you're still sharp. And that last part is the piece almost everyone gets wrong because it feels insane to stop when it's going well. But stopping at the peak is exactly what lets you start the next block at the peak instead of clawing your way back up. There's an even sharper version of this that writers and scientists have used for a century. Hemingway supposedly did it. He'd stop writing mid-sentence in the middle of a thought when he still knew exactly what came next. Why? Because of something psychologists call the Zeigarnik effect. Your brain hates an unfinished task. It keeps an open loop running in the background, churning on it, which means when you sit back down, you don't face the terror of a blank page. You face a sentence that's already half-built, with your subconscious having quietly worked on it the whole time you were away. They weaponize the incompleteness. Now here's where it gets genuinely strange. The break itself matters enormously, and the wrong break is almost as bad as no break at all. If you stop focusing and immediately pour information back into your brain, you check your phone, you scroll, you read something, you've given your attention system nothing to recover with. You've just swapped one demanding task for another. The breaks that actually restore vigilance are the empty ones. Staring out a window, walking with no podcast, letting your mind drift with nothing pulling at it. Researchers studying memory found that even a few minutes of quiet, awake rest after learning something dramatically improved how much people remembered days later. Doing nothing was the active ingredient, which means the most productive thing you can do at exactly the moment you feel the urge to push harder might be to stop and stare at a wall. The high performers figured this out. They protect the gaps as fiercely as they protect the work. So the question worth sitting with is this. If your brain has been quietly deciding what's worth your attention every 20 minutes of your entire life, how much of what you call losing focus was never weakness at all, but a signal you were trained to ignore?